Hello, this is Danny with Inspiration Software Design, and we're going to take a look at the simple time clock program for FileMaker. This is a FileMaker-based, completely unlocked time clock system, which includes timekeeping and payroll reporting features. In this video, we're first going to take a look at the software from the perspective of a user, and then we're going to take a look at it from the perspective of an admin and a supervisor. And then we're going to take a look at the back end and see what it would take to integrate this program with an existing database. Now, this does work as a standalone database, but you can also integrate it with your existing system if you so desire. From the perspective of a user, this is a pretty simple setup. So you open the database, you log in, and this is what you see. Just a simple little window that asks you to clock in. It also has the option to show you the timesheet report. So when we clock in, it's going to show us the time that we're clocking in, and we also have the option to change that or request a correction if we forgot to clock in. And then once we're clocked in, we can see this thing turns blue and it shows us we're clocked in, and we can click again to clock out. That's pretty much the main experience users are going to have with this. Now, if I did want to clock out and I realized I had forgotten to clock in this morning, I can actually go here and request that, oh, actually I got here at 9 o'clock. And then maybe put a note here that says I forgot to clock in. And then the supervisor or the admin will see that, and then they can approve that correction. So then we clock out. One other failsafe that's in place is that if a user forgets to clock out and the following day they go to clock in and they see they're still clocked in. So we can see admin here. The date today is April 24th, but we can see admin here has been clocked in since 4/21. If he attempts to clock out, we can see that we've got a red title bar, and it's going to show this in red saying 4/21. So we should be able to see right away that, okay, something's wrong here. If we attempt to clock out, it will give us a dialog that says, you're clocking out of a shift that began 83 hours ago. Did you forget to clock out on your last shift? Are you sure you want to continue without adjusting your clock out time? Click no, and then click the pencil icon to enter a different clock out time. The other option that users have is to take a look at a timesheet report. This is going to, first of all, ask what pay period we want to look at. It's going to default to the current pay period. And here's the report. It's an interactive report, which gives us those same features where we can go in and ask for a correction. We can also request vacation time, personal time, sick time, mileage, and it'll show us our current balance for those things, our current vacation, personal, and sick time balance. We'll see that on the admin side in a bit. If we have any notes that we want to send to the supervisor, we can put those here. And then we can also click here to review so that the supervisor or the payroll people know that we've reviewed our time clock or our timesheet and we approve of it. So now from the admin perspective, now when they open the program, they're going to see the same thing. They're going to see this time clock window that's going to allow them to clock in and clock out. They're going to have two more options. The employee manager, that's going to show us a list of all the current employees that we've entered into the system and a bunch of information about those employees. And then this is where we're also going to be adding new employees, new users. There's also a couple of reports available. If we click on one of our employees, we will see all of their clock in and clock out activity for the current pay period. We can actually make edits here if we want to. Here we can see the correction request that was made. This little icon will appear if a correction request was made. And from here, we can just accept that, and then it's just going to change their clock in time to 9 o'clock. And this will remain here, so we'll be able to look back and see that, oh, they clocked in at 10:41, but they actually said they arrived at 9 a.m. Of course, we can remove entries here. We can also add entries manually here as an admin. Supervisors can also do this. We'll get into the whole supervisor setup later. But here we can add a new shift manually. Now, if we add a shift manually, let's say we happen to know that this person was here on the 23rd, and they arrived at 9 a.m. I'll just copy and paste this, and they were here until, 4 p.m. You can see that it appears red. That's just telling us that this was a manually entered entry. And as you saw over here, we can also add vacation time. We can add personal time, sick time, and holiday time. So let's say they called in sick one day. Now they can put that on their interactive timesheet. We can just put in, they were out for the day. Let's say they were out for an 8-hour shift that they would have normally had. And then down here, we can see the total hours, the overtime, And it's showing we've got 8 hours of sick time on this pay period. And then over here we have personal information for the employee, and then payroll information and account information. We can set up the compensation information, which will be included in the payroll report that we'll look at later, and then the account info. So this is how we set up accounts and determine which privileges the person has. So if we look, for instance, at the admin, we can see that these are all checked off. So the admin has admin privileges, which allows them to see the employee manager and the preferences, which we'll take a look at in a minute. Payroll allows them to see this tab. This tab would not appear if this payroll was not checked. Supervisor also gives them access to the employee manager. However, they will only be able to see a list of employees for which they are selected as a supervisor. So when we select supervisor, that user gets added to this drop-down menu over here. And then personnel management gives us access to the personal info and then some of this and the payroll report. Account info only the admin can see. So if we go back to test user, we'll see that they have test soup selected as their supervisor. Test soup is just a supervisor, so they will only have access to the employee manager and they will only be able to see test user. This is where we would add our vacation balance. So we could say, let's say we want to give them another 20 hours of vacation time. So now their vacation balance is 40 hours. Same with personal, same with sick. And then over here, we can also see who's currently clocked in. So right now, just admin is clocked in. When the test user was clocked in fact, if we clock that user back in, we'll see that they are also, they now show up in this list. The reporting that we have available to admins, we have the timesheet report, which is similar to the interactive one, except it's not interactive and it shows all employees for the pay period. And this is a print-friendly report. The payroll report shows a summary of information for the pay period that pertains to payroll. So this would be a report that you would supply to your payroll department. Let's take a look at the settings. So if we click this little gear, and of course if we look here at the test user's account, they do not have that little gear because they're not admins. So only our admins will have this. We can set our pay period. When you set it to bi-weekly or weekly, you do need to pick a date in this calendar that represents a first day of a pay period, and then it'll calculate all subsequent pay periods from that date. If we select monthly, then we don't need to select it, obviously, because it will assume that it's the first of the month. If we select semi-monthly, as it says down here, it will assume the first of the month for the first pay period of the month, but then we would select whenever we would want the second pay period of the month to start. And then for overtime, we have the option to have our overtime period be weekly or based on the pay period. If we have it set up for weekly, then we put in our number of hours, after which hours are counted as overtime, and then the overtime rate. Now, if we go with pay period, the reset day is going to be the same as pay periods. To create a new user, we start off by clicking the plus sign up here, and that will create a new record for a user. We can put in their information here. We can put in their payroll information, but then to actually create an account, we're going to go in here and we're just going to click active. And at that point, it's going to ask us for a username and password. Now, the user will be asked to change their password the first time they log in. So I'm just going test 3 and test 3. And if we take a look in our manage security, we will see that we now have a test 3 user. Shouldn't really need to go in here much because the privileges are all managed here and the users are created and deleted here. The one thing that we would need to go into the manage security dialog for is if we want to make a full access user. This can only be done here. It cannot be done programmatically in FileMaker. If we ever wanted to delete that account or revoke the full access, we would have to go into the manage database. But everything else can be done in here. So if we don't give them any extra privileges, they will basically have the same setup that this test user has. Now, if we want to remove a user, we just check active and it will say the account exists. Do you want to delete this account? You can see over here that these 2 users are grayed out. That means that they don't have accounts. That's it as far as the functionality of this system goes. So just to get a sense of what it would be like to integrate this solution, I'm going to show you the managed database real quickly. We have 7 tables here. We've got a globals and a preferences, and then the remaining 5 are actually data tables. The location table is actually optional. It's there if you want your users to be logging into specific locations and to be able to break down your payroll by location. Here are the relationships. Relatively simple. We've got 2 main tags here. We've got one that's kind of your current session information, and then we've got the main time clock tag with the relationships related to the actual time clock entries. So you can see it's relatively simple. Integrating this with an existing solution should be pretty easy to do, and integration instructions will be included. So that is the simple time clock for FileMaker. I hope you do find it useful. Thanks for watching.